Welcome to our tank guide for Final Fantasy XIV. Here you will learn the main abilities and how to manage your rotation during trials, dungeons, and any other duty. Final Fantasy XIV has 4 tanks jobs. They are Marauder, Gladiator, Dark Knight, and Gunbreaker. Marauder and Gladiator are part of the base game A Real Reborn. Dark Knight is from the Heavensward expansion and Gunbreaker is from Shadowbringers. Marauder is a class that starts in Issa Lumissa. Its survivability is quite high thanks to its skill sets that includes a lot of self-healing and sustain. After level 30, your Soul Crystal upgrades the class and starts to be called Weiher. Gladiator starts in Ul'dah and is the tank with the most defensive skills. When you upgrade to Paladin, you get 2 extra defensive abilities. One to split incoming damage and the other to boost your defense. It's also the tank class that takes longest to unlock its gap closer, but we will get to that later. Dark Knight comes with the Heavensward DLC at level 50, but let's be honest, the hardest part is reaching Ishgard, because yeah, there is a lot of story. This class focuses more on shielding abilities and is the second highest DPS among tanks. Gunbreaker is a class from the Shadowbringers expansion and can be unlocked in Gridania with any combat class at level 60. Crafting and gathering classes don't count. Speaking of damage-dealing tanks, let's recap. The tank class with the highest DPS is definitely Gunbreaker, followed by Dark Knight, Weiher, and Paladin. The jobs available from the start are Marauder and Gladiator, available during the character creation. Then comes Dark Knight in Heavensward, and lastly Gunbreaker in Shadowbringers. Since Gunbreaker can be unlocked in Gridania, you might actually unlock it before Dark Knight, since Dark Knight is tied to the Ishgard region, and to unlock Ishgard you need to complete a lot of main story quests and a bunch of side quests to access that area. Now that we reviewed everything, how about a quick summary? The most self-sufficient tank without a healer is Weiher. The most defensive tank is Paladin, due to its special abilities like Holy Sheltron. The highest damage dealer is Gunbreaker, and the most utility-based is Dark Knight, thanks to the 3 shareable mitigation skills. What? To put it simply, mitigation is any skill that helps reduce the damage you take. But don't worry, I will explain more about them in a bit. So, which class should you choose? The strongest overall is Weiher, no question about it. But honestly, you know how I picked mine? Aesthetic. Yeah, I meant to pick the one I liked the most because for me, it was the prettiest. Don't stress too much about stats. With every patch, something always changes, and you will end up switching from Weiher to Paladin, then Gunbreaker, and then back to Weiher again. So just pick what you find the most fun for your gameplay. Forget about stats. Now let's go over the basics. 3 things you need to know when playing as a tank. First, tanks always need to be at the front line, and they set the pace of the dungeons. After all, they generate the most aggro, or at least they are designed to. So always make sure your immunity buff, which is how the aggro is called in Final Fantasy XIV, is turned on at the start of a new instance. Second step, always keep enemies on the opposite side of your allies, because first, it helps melee DPS deal more damage, and second, it avoids your teammates taking AoE damage, something pretty frequent at trials like Shiva and Titan. Third step, there are 2 ways to run a dungeon, pulling small waves or pulling large waves. Pulling large groups is also known as walling, from the word wall. This technique involves gathering all the mobs in an area and pulling them to the last unlocked area that you can step into. It's important to balance how much you pull because especially at lower levels, healing heavy damage is quite difficult. So always check if your healer is keeping up or struggling. You can do that easily by pressing the KV or moving your camera. Let's take a look at the core tank abilities. You already know the one that boosts aggro, Amity, but there are also other abilities that are essential for battle. They are Area of Effect Damage, Branched Damage, Provoke, Voke, and Interject. AoE damage helps ensure all mobs stay targeting you in the battle. Always pay attention to the enemy list on your left. Red means they are targeting you, yellow means they are losing the focus on you, and green means they are ignoring you. In the early levels, I recommend using at least 2 or 3 times the AoE ability to make sure aggro doesn't slip away and walk over to your melee DPS or healer. The ranged attack is an ability unlocked through your class quests, and it has a range much shorter than Provoke, but has no cooldown. Provoke, on the other hand, besides generating a large amount of MP, has also a pretty long range. Some players use this ability to steal a boss from another player. Why? No idea. But you can use it to save a tank when they have too many debuffed stacks, or are about to die to the monster and your healer isn't quite keeping up. Another way to use Provoke is to bring another wave of enemies without needing to move. You may notice there is a very thin line between the mobs. So that means if you pull one, all the others connected by that line will come with it. That helps your rotation and also make things easier for your melee DPS so they don't have to move as much. And before I forget, Interject is a skill that silences your enemies. It works on any skill that keeps blinking. Now that you know the basics, how about starting to practice? Let's begin with a low-level dungeon, Sastasha. Check if your empty buff is active in your buff area. Step number 2. Pull your first mob with your ranged attack, or simply walk up and use your area damage attack at least twice. Step number 3. Check if you are missing any enemy from your list, which is usually on the left side of your screen, or simply glance around. You can always use the V key to turn your camera. Step number 4. Use your mitigation buff as you see fit. It's recommended not to use them all at once because they have long cooldowns. Some classes have more options than others, like Paladin, and some pulls hit harder than others. So there is no right way to use mitigation. Use it as you feel necessary. And when the pulls hit harder, a great example is Stone Vigil. The ice crystals deal way more damage than the other monsters, so it's normal to end up using almost all your mitigations while facing them. That's the kind of balance you need to find. But don't worry, everyone makes mistakes, and honestly, I still don't fully get it. What matters is you enjoying the journey. And you know those markers that appear on your head when you're facing bosses? At the start, they follow a pretty standard pattern, but later on, as you advance through trials at levels 60, 70, and 80, you see that sometimes there are a few exceptions. That's because Final Fantasy thinks it's more interesting when you learn the fights without falling into boredom. But let's advance. Since we are just starting out, I'm going to show you 3 markers that are important for you. The first one is area damage, the most common one. You will see an arrow on your head and some more arrows at the ground. It can be either square or circular. That means you need to group up with your party, not run away from them. Another marker is the one that is just a single arrow on your head, nothing on the ground. That one means it's a tank stack, not for your allies. So if you're playing as, say, a DPS, you notice that never happens to you because it only goes to whoever has the most aggro, usually the tank. And lastly, talk a bit higher, so don't worry if you forget about this one, is a marker with 2 little orbs on your head. These 2 orbs mean both tanks need to stand together. At the beginning, in early trials and early dungeons, you won't have a group with 2 tanks, but later on you will. So it's always good to already be aware of what it means. You usually can survive tank it alone, but if your gear is really low or you don't use abilities like Black Shield or Holy Shelter, you might end up dying. So don't panic. If the other tank doesn't help you, that's okay, and if they do, even better. This guide is here to help you become a better tank, but that doesn't mean you always have to be the top one. Deal? Now, before we wrap up, let me tell you a bit more about the tank abilities. Provoke doesn't work in fates, choose events that happen randomly on the map, so it's good to create the habit of relying more on your ranged attack than on Provoke to start your fights. Another really useful skill is your Gap Closer, which unlocks a little later. Each job gets it at a different level, and some of them way later than others. Let's check out that list. Dark Knight unlocked at level 54, Gunbreaker at level 56, Warrior at 62, and Paladin at 66. Pretty late, right? And that's all for today. Don't forget to share this with your friends, and if your cup is full, you can donate any amount on the PayPal on the description. Happy hunting and see ya next time!